Thank you. I would like to share this solution, this core feature of WordPress with you that I really care deeply about. So we start with what is Multisite? What's the software itself? So Multisite is the different way of doing multiple WordPress solutions, multiple WordPress websites. So normally if you have more than one website with WordPress, you would simply install a new WordPress somewhere in the web and simply then have a website point to that. So, and with Multisite, you have one installation, and on this one installation you have multiple instances of WordPress. And the question that you probably ask yourself is like, how many is the limit? There isn't. So it just depends on how big your server can get. So the possibility with that is that you can have one singular installation, and that can feature all of the sites that you are having. So the benefits for that is you have a central update possibility for all the plugins and theme you're having. So for example, when you, in terms of like single sites, when you have multiple plugins, for example, a search optimization plugin, and you update that, you need to update that on every single site. So you, for example, you have like 6 sites where you have like different brands that you represent, and you have 6 installations. You need to do the updates every time. With Multisite, you simply update this one time, and it's this version then for all the installations. The same with the themes, you simply have one installation, one update, and it's everywhere immediately. The other possibility with being shared between those sites is the possibility to have global content. So you could have like a global media or like blogs that are shared between sites, because with the possibility to not have the problem of not being able to connect with each other, because they have one database where they can pull from. So you have one central repository that you then pull your content from, and that you update it in one place, that it updates everywhere over the multi-site. And the other one is the central management of user access. So you can define who has access to what sites, and you don't need to log in into several sites to manage like a new person you onboarding, a person that you're offboarding, or someone giving new rights. You can simply manage it from one installation, and this then reflects to all the sites you want to have them. The downside is, when you can see the first one, central updates for plugins. That means if you update a plugin or a theme, and you have, for example, 50 sites, this plugin is then on the new version on those 50 sites immediately. That means if there needs to be something done after the update, you need to check something, you need to do this then right away. So you need to check updates. The same with themes. If you do something different, this will reflect to all of the sites immediately. Plugins itself could have an issue with Multisite, because it's not really that much used in the common space of WordPress, but only like in certain areas, for example, enterprise and other sites. And also with having one installations and all the environments on that, if something happens to this one installation, everything is affected. So if your website goes down, if you've been attacked, if you've been hacked, this single point of failure is the point where you need to really make sure your security is up to date with that. So the question is then, so who is using Multisite? Multisite is used, for example, by universities. So in the universities, in the higher education area, Multisite helps them give departments of those universities the freedom to have the possibility to create new sites, to create new content areas without being talking to the central IT, because you have all the plugins and all the themes there, and you can simply roll this out and give the departments or facilities the freedom to simply spin up things. The other very known version that Multisite is using is WordPress.com. So WordPress.com itself is a huge multi-site. It's millions of sites. We remember in the beginning when I said, like, what is the limit? There is no limit. So WordPress.com is the one multi-site where you can simply add a new site and choose from the plugins and themes over there to simply be able to run your website at any moment's time. There's also the showcase on WordPress.org where you can find other examples for using WordPress multi-site. Spoiler: universities, because in the world of the business sites, there's not really that much publicity who is using multi-site, because those customers simply deliver value, and they're not really open what exactly they are using. So now, imagine brand management. So imagine you are a global brand manager. First of all, congratulations to the new job. So your job is now to be responsible for all the websites that your company with all the brands globally has running. So you have a small website of a campaign in Brazil. You have a site spinning up right now in Japan about a campaign, and someone in Central Europe is defining a big relaunch of their website. So for you, as the global responsible person for that, the question for you is, if you imagine like the single site implementation of that, so who is responsible for running that? So we had once a call from exactly a global brand manager, and like the first sentence was from them is like, I would like to sleep at night. I would like to sleep at night and not having the fear of being defaced somewhere in the world where my domain name is pointing to where our brand is on, and someone is simply doing like scams with that. So the question is, who is responsible for the environment means who is doing the updates? Because after a campaign was done, for example in Brazil, they don't care about the site anymore. Like, who's updating the PHP versions? Who is updating the plugins there? Nobody cares. The campaign was done. The URL is still live because someone was paying for a year advance. But who cares about the updates? Nobody. So the global brand manager has the problem of need to deal with that, while everybody on the ground just wants to go to the next campaign and move on. So the next thing is the CI and CD, the corporate design, corporate identity of like a change of a logo, a change of a color, needs to be reflected globally. So if you have, like, let's say, rogue brands going off and doing something strange, you as a global brand manager have the problem to contain that. So there is a way for you to be able to know where exactly how many URLs you are having. And that brings us to the point of like, how many sites you are currently running globally. Who has access to that? Are they off-boarded? Are they on-boarded? So all of those things is really something that a global brand manager needs to care about, and there's where multi-site really brings value in, because you have the control over that. Let's talk about the myths for multi-site. So the one thing we hear often is multi-site is inflexible. So you cannot really do that much things with that. You are really like limited in the things you can do. So the possibilities with multi-site is that you can differ from a central installation. So you don't have to have all the same theme. You can have completely different themes. You can go really wild with the possibilities you will enable for a landing page, for example. The other thing is that if you have a compliance reason to have a certain plugin to make sure in a certain area in the world that this runs and makes sure that you are compliant with the stuff that you're doing, with multi-site you can simply enable that plugin only on those certain sites in the multi-site and be sure that you really are safe with the thing that you are doing. And because of a core, core feature of Multisite, you can add domains to that. So you can have the sites not being only subdirectory subdomains, but since like years ago, you can add domain names, even subdirectories of domain names to the Multisite, because it's simply a core feature that WordPress always brought in for a long time. So the next thing was WordPress, Multisite is unstable. I heard that a while back and was like really flabbergasted how someone could think this feature is like outdated, because this was the release when Multisite was added. Anybody of you feeling old? So this was June 2010, WordPress version 3.0, where Multisite was added. So since then, all the things I'm explaining to you, part of that, and some of them with plugins, are part of WordPress core. So you right now could spin this up any second, can go like, I would like to have a Multisite, you can run with that. So that's why it's really something that everybody could use if they have the possibilities to really grow with branding and other things. So the part with the unstable, there is a coin of truth in there. So we define plugins in Multisite in 3 different versions. So we say we have non-compatible plugins. That means plugins that cannot run on, like, will not run on Multisite. An easy giveaway is that is the plugins where you feel like a pig will run over a keyboard and was creating the plugin. So it's a horrible code, and that's for a reason because it's not applying to code standard. It was not following the way of like really writing successful code. Was simply put up online, and someone was like, yeah, $5, what can go wrong? And put it on the site. So those plugins simply create problems with Multisite because nobody thought about like having this up and running. The other one is the passively compatible ones. That are the plugins who follow code standards, who simply are written good enough, sorry, enterprise agency, written good enough to be able to run on a Multisite without causing a problem. And the actively compatible plugins mean plugins that even offer extra features in WordPress once they are activated in Multisite, because they saying like, oh, I'm in a network. You can manage me at one point in a network, and I apply the changes to all the sites because I understand what I'm currently doing, and I'm really empowering you as a Multisite user to leverage the features I bring. The other thing that we hear is Multisite is too complicated. And there are ways to improve your Multisite skills. So the first thing is unlearn workflows. So there was a WordCamp in Porto last year where someone, like 3 people came up to me. They were sent by a person to me. It was like, hey, Robert, we were sent to you. We have a question about multilingual and Multisite. So then we talked about like, okay, how can we help them with our solution of using Multisite? And they asked, they had an e-commerce solution, and they were asking, how can I access the REST API for a certain language? And that's the fun part of helping them unlearn. I was asking them, so how would you do this in a normal way of WordPress? How would you do this in a normal installation? They were saying like, I go to the JSON API and simply ask them. I was like, yes, that's it. You go to the URL of the language, go to the JSON, and your content is there, because the content is not separated by a plugin. The content is separated by Multisites, and that is core taking care of all these things. So whenever I have those conversations with people, the most of the times is me not explaining in the multilingual solutions, not explaining them how our solution works. Like 60% of the time, I'm just explaining them Multisite core features, because people are so unsure what workarounds do they need to do. And we always tell them, that's simply core WordPress. Simply go as you normally would go, and this will work out because you already know WordPress. You just need to unlearn, for example, for translations plugins, you simply need to unlearn the single-site installations that are doing something strange. And so people need to understand that core WordPress simply can solve this by connecting sites with each other. The other one is researching existing solutions. As you know, Multisite was added with WordPress 3.0. Whatever problem you run into while using Multisite, guess that someone solved it probably a decade ago. So just research what is out there and use the solution, plugins, and wisdom that was already in the internet and solve your problem or reach out to others that use Multisite. And the last thing to really improve your Multisite skills is, if you not already do, use WP CLI. WP CLI can really help you manage a large installation of WordPress, and it can really empower you to manage things where you go into the backend, click around. You need to have like this click path of like, I need to go to change this one role of a person. I need to go log into the backend, go to users, search this person, open the profile, scroll down, and now imagine that's one command line. So to show you how we as an enterprise agency do it, that's WP CLI examples we do. If you're already using WP CLI and you are not really combining command lines with each other, I would recommend to you take a photo of that. Because the goal is really to understand that the possibility there is endless with Multisite. And the possibility enabling with WP CLI for you is to connect to those things and really help you manage large sites way easier as other people in the world do it. So just like become part of this group that we are. The next thing is Multisite is slow. And welcome to the subpart of performance optimization for me. So the next way is to how to improve your Multisite performance. To understand, you could run Multisite with like 50 sites on the Raspberry Pi. You shouldn't. And if you are looking for traffic, you just need to plan for like what you normally would plan for a website. So we hear people going like, yeah, but their performance is not really going well. So the problem is then you simply not planning ahead of the traffic you will have and the possibilities of simply optimizing your code. And one of the things that you need to do when you run a bigger WordPress website is using object caching. If you're not already doing that, you should really look into this. And the other one, most obvious thing there is simply don't run slow code. If you have code that is not performant, this will drag down the whole performance of your website. And if you want to know like how the big guys do hosting, that is the architecture of WordPress VIP. So that's what White House and NASA is running on. And you can see like DDoS protection, firewall, like whatever you throw at them, and I heard like the White House got attacked maybe a few times a day, this thing doesn't care how much traffic you throw it at. So that's a way of understanding the possibilities if you really like think big in terms of like environments, in terms of like possibilities you can have. I'm waiting for everybody to photograph that. Thank you. So and the other thing is, and it's only that's a very like cost-intensive solution, but it's standard in the enterprise world. So New Relic tells you what exactly is slow in your code to the function, to the line of code. And this is used, like even if you don't use it right now and you don't have the budget, if you ever run into performance issues and you want to know like, but how do the big sites do that? Yeah, we have tools like that automatically installed. So that is something where we really easily can tell bottlenecks right away. And again, spoiler, poorly written poorly written plugins are the main reason for that. That's why the enterprise agencies have not that much publicly available plugins running, because the quality of code in WordPress is improvable of plugins. So now imagine you have more than 100 sites, or you plan ahead of having more of 100 sites on a multi-site. I would like to introduce you to LudicrousDB, which is a way to partitioning the sites you're having. So normally WordPress would be in one big database and would replicate all tables without the user tables. So you can imagine like 100 times that is a very big number. So LudicrousDB will simply enable you that, and a kind of that, it's called a different plugin, it's called HyperDB or something else, runs on WordPress.com. So that's kind of like the same technical base, but it's a free plugin, you can simply download it, activate it, but then you need to configure stuff. And the beauty with these possibilities of scaling in that regard, and we still, for the record, we're still in the multi-site is slow part of the talk, of the myth, and I tell you, yeah, we solved those things. And the possibilities here, for example, is that you can define different database servers where you put your site on. So you have, for example, site number 5, that is a very high traffic website. You can have on a different database server that is even scaled up more. And if we even like go one step more ahead, what about you have the possibility to have read and write servers, so you can even scale this database interaction even higher, and the possibility in the plugin, when you download it right away, right now, is the possibility to have so many database servers that you can simply say, right now in this data center, this is the read server, this is the write server, and what is close by, how does my network looks like? And you know, like, again, this should not run on Raspberry Pi, but as you can see, for big sites, that is something of a availability for years now. Now the bonus question. What is the difference between network activated and the MU plugins folder? So there is a folder called must use plugins in WordPress, and every plugin that you put in there will automatically run on all sites in the network, like on all sites on your installation. And network-wide activated plugins are available in the network. So if you never look too close to the database of WordPress, when you install Multisite, there is a table that is called WP site, and in there is one entry. That's your Multisite. But you're going like, but it's a database. Can I add a second line? You can. You can add as much as you want to. This segmentation of sites is a feature in WordPress I call multi-site. Really easy to understand, just like put one more step on that and you have multiple networks on one installation with multiple sites. The possibility of that is that you can simply have, as a higher education user with a university, you simply have the possibility to give this department their own network, and in this network they are network admins and they can create new sites, but in the main network, your network, they are just an admin in site number 5. This is a core feature since WordPress 3.0. This is in there. You can use it right away. And the possibility with that is that the network activated plugins will simply be activated in this network. So when they have their own site, they can have, as a super admin, control over this network, but the network activated plugin of like a compliance plugin will not be in your first network or in the network of like the third site there, the third multi-site. So the possibilities are really something where your compliance tool in the MU plugins folder will run on all of the sites on this installation, and network activated plugins simply run in the network. This is a possibility, again, happening right now in WordPress. And you're asking like, but I use multi-site. I never saw that. Yes, because there is no interface in that. There's no interface for that because nobody dared to like, yeah, that's way too complicated. We don't do an interface. This plugin there from JJJ simply gives you an interface. It doesn't add any new feature to WordPress. It just gives you an interface to manage the multi-sites and to manage moving sites between the multi-sites. You can disable this plugin, it still works because it's all in WordPress since version 3.0. So now that I have convinced you all to use multi-site, I tell you how you activate that. So you activate multi-site by adding to your WP config file simply an allow multi-site, and then you can go to the network admin and you can create your first, remember, multi-site, you can create your first multi-site there. And then you have the possibility to simply set up the rewrites because multi-site needs different rewrites because of the possibility of subfolders and having sites in there. And you have some WP config configurations. And that's done, and then you have this network admin area where you can simply then jump between the sites. And there's also a possibility to use WP CLI again to activate that. So that is this one line. That's it. You have a WordPress installation, you run this line, done. We will ask you something, it will tell you you need to make sure that your HD access is right, but again, I cannot vouch enough for WP CLI. Please use it if you are professionally working with WordPress, even locally. Just use WP CLI. And the other thing is, please don't keep bugs to yourself. So I met a person at WordCamp US last year. Again, person was sent to me and was asking questions about multi-site and multi-networks. And so I then talked about with him, I was like, okay, what is the thing that bugs you on multi-site? What is the thing that really is driving you nuts with using it? It was like, nah, nothing, I'm good. It's like, okay, other question. What workarounds you currently have code in place specifically for things in multi-site? And they were like, I have like those solutions there. And one thing they had was, they had for WP cache get, there was a weird problem that they were using multi-networks. And the parameter for networks in the WP cache get was simply assuming it's always network 1, because again, multi-networks is not really a public thing that people use that much. I hope to change this, and so this broke for multi-networks, and I brought this person back to the core table at the contributor day and was like, hey, could you review this possibility for making sure the code runs good? And they were like, oh yeah, that's really just the one. We are not asking for the site ID. So what is really something easy to change. That's why if you have something that does not work the way it should work, there's track. That's our issue tracker of WordPress. And as you can see, we have currently 172 open tickets in this track, and also something already selected for the next release. And if you have something, please make sure that you voice your opinion there, bring your feedback in there, so that we really, as a WordPress community, no longer need to guess how we can move Multisite forward, what needs to be changed, what needs to be done, so that we really have something where we know what people have for problems and what people are using differently in WordPress. So what did we learn? We learned that Multisite is stable and scalable. We learned that you can use it right now. Okay, you need to probably like log onto your computer and do things, but you can use it right now on your installation. And also, if you have any multi-site question or multi-network question or multi-site question, please find me and let's have a chat. Thank you.